High Evolutionary is the perfect Marvel Snap card. Does nothing too over the top, a very mid-rangey, on-board, focused deck that requires you to adapt to the things other people are doing, and most importantly, is the best card for a free-to-play player because it turns your fairly useless early game vanilla cards like Cyclops and the Hulk into actual threats you can play in a game of Marvel Snap. Unfortunately, everyone knows that High Evolutionary just isn't that good and can't succeed at the top level. But what if I told you it actually could? What if I told you I had a 70% win rate with High Evolutionary in High Infinite over about 40 games? You'd probably say, well, KM, you're still playing a Star-Lord. And my response to that is basically that it's like big Psylocke. I got a Star-Lord for 3, like a couple times. I got a Star-Lord for 4, basically never. And I got a Star-Lord for 2 was probably about the average piece of output. But largely what I'm getting at here is that because of the way the metagame has developed, there actually is a lot more room for mid-range decks to operate in, and we explored this concept when I did my Archangel review and a little bit in my review of Polaris, but I'd like to make it a little more explicit right now. Shou Lao is still a really scary card. It's still quite good. It's going to do powerful things. It's far from unbeatable because the game you're playing is Marvel Snap, and the floor on Marvel Snap is honestly pretty high. You can win against the deck that has more points than you by allocating your points correctly and reading what they're doing. These decks fight on even terms, and with the addition of Red Guardian into this shell, there actually kind of is just enough interaction for you to deal with those pesky Jocasta lanes that would otherwise take you apart. This deck felt legitimately very solid. The major thing that was happening here was mostly just ethical mid-range Marvel Snap, buoyed by a couple of factors: Red Guardian and Shang-Chi. Red Guardian is a great card in general right now because you just don't have the ability to have a tech card for everything you're gonna see. You're gonna need to use it to hit maybe a Maverick in a certain lane. You're gonna hit an Agony that goes into the Maverick lane, so they end up overfilling that lane. The Agony doesn't merge. You're gonna do all sorts of stuff like that. Shang-Chi, meanwhile, is great at dealing with a lot of the big boy combo decks. When you run into big boy combo decks, typically they end up being either the kind that are vulnerable to Red Guardian, which is like, I'm doing Onslaught, Iron Man, Living Tribunal, or the kind that are vulnerable to Shang-Chi. I'm making a big Fin Fang Foom, or I'm making a big Phoenix Force, or things of that nature. But there's a secret hidden thing that Shang-Chi does too, which is if you have priority and they play a Star-Lord, you blow up the Star-Lord and instantly win that matchup. So you have a lot of play into the really popular decks, and you get to play a fairly reasonable and fair mid-range game. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is the best thing since sliced bread, but it's the best I've felt about High Evolutionary in like a year. Now, because of the nature of this deck breakdown, I am actually going to spend a little more time talking about budget replacements here, because I do think that's a pretty decent part of High Evolutionary's appeal, so we will get into that for cards that actually need them. Iceman, of course, a card everyone has. This was originally Nebula. I swapped it out for Iceman because I just felt like the disruption was more valuable on the whole than the chance that Nebula got to a reasonable size. I think people will suggest that it should be Sunspot. I don't really think so. You're not skipping nearly as much as you think you're skipping in a deck like this. Like, you'll do it when you can, but very often Star-Lord is just big Psylocke. You really want to get to 3 if you can, but it's not always possible, and sometimes you just have to commit to being a mid-range deck that's going to cheat energy the other way by making an Abomination totally free on the final turn of the game, as opposed to cheating energy the Star-Lord way. With all of that said, it felt like Iceman was a much more meaningful card in the matchups that I actually cared about, because it gave me information on what my opponent was playing and made it harder for them to do that thing. Misty Knight, of course, gets upgraded by High Evolutionary to say that when you skip energy on a turn, she gives +1 power to something else. She just plays as like a pretty reasonably large card here, a 1/4, a 1/5. That's really all you can ask of a card in a deck like this. Sometimes she's going to be a little bit bigger, but just the nature of being a 1-drop that cares about stats is a bit of a fraught thing because you're not able to get that many stats on any 1-drop. So in as much as she's going to be doing things, she is a support piece rather than something that wins you the game, but she does help. Now, I am playing Polaris here, and that is definitely a card that we should talk about in the context of budget replacements. But first, what's her role? Her role here is, if I'm doing the sort of minimum investment Star-Lord, getting to 2 is really good because I can then play a Hulk and then a Polaris. So if you're looking for a replacement, you want something that has like high impact for a relatively low cost. It typically ends up meaning you're gonna look at things that are like afflicts, right? So I think US Agent could be a good card for this. It also means that you could look at a tech card like Shadow King maybe, although I think you care a little too much about your afflicts to feel good about a Shadow King. But largely what you're looking for is something good to pair with either a Shang-Chi with 6 energy on the final turn of the game or a Hulk with 8 energy on the final turn of the game. A lot of the time when I got to 9 energy on the final turn of the game, I would just do like the 8 energy play and then float for a Cyclops and a Misty Knight proc. That was like much more of what was going on there. So what you're really looking for here is just something high impact for that final turn. US Agent strikes me as the most likely outcome, but I think if you know what sort of space the card is looking at, you can find things that fill the same role. Scorpion is just a very solid card. There's nothing special about him. He's far from the best 2-drop you can play in a normal deck, but he's not that much below it. Like, if you look at Scorpion and you look at Cable, or if you look at Scorpion and you look at, like, Iron Patriot, you can see that there is a difference. Those cards are probably a little bit better. But there is something to be said for just being able to have a reasonably close enough body to those cards and effect to those cards, and also work with what your deck is trying to do. And that's really the advantage that Scorpion gives. He's like 85% as good as those cards, 80% as good as those cards in a vacuum. But once you add in the fact that he synergizes with your Abomination, he synergizes with your Polaris, he ends up pretty clearly just being a great selection. And this is one of the other things that's really good about High Evo, is somehow they managed to make a deck that not only wants you to run the base vanilla cards, but also a lot of the things that tie into it are also from Series 1 and 2. Red Guardian gets to do double duty here. He is a -2 afflict for Polaris, who really only needs 5, so you can definitely get there. I've seen people running other afflicts in this shell, by the way. Like, I've seen a Wasp instead of the Iceman. I think that's pretty compelling. It lets you skip, it lets you do things. There's not nothing there. It helps you get your hand out for Polaris, so you're rolling a little bit less. That's an interesting direction you can go, because then you have a Wasp, you have this, and you have one Cyclops proc, and suddenly you're there for Polaris, and that's important. But I do think that largely this is just a card that is doing its best impression of a Cosmic Ghost Rider. And yeah, that's a good enough thing to do, because we don't really have the latitude to actually play the card Cosmic Ghost Rider. So with the fact that we have a mini one that also synergizes with what the deck does, we take that 10 out of 10 times. This is just a good card. There are a lot of decks that are setting up onboard combos right now, and this is a card that can take the piece that they're trying to copy away. It can take the Invisible One away, it can take the Jocasta away, it can take the Maverick away, it can take the Agony away, it can take the Iron Man away when they're doing Living Tribunal stuff. Tons of stuff. Just amazing card. When evolved by High Evolutionary, Cyclops gains his laser eyes, and every time you skip energy, he starts going pew pew, -1 power to 2 cards at his location on the opposing side of the board. This is a really solid card, but again, one of the things that I learned when playing this deck was just like, don't over-index for it. You don't have to play this deck the way it's built to be played, if that makes any sense. It's actually a little bit reminiscent of Sholau, where if you play Sholau a certain way, that is to say, I'm always setting up the Voltron, and even if it gets disrupted, I'm still going to go for it, even though it might be better to not set up the Voltron and use my activates earlier. This is the same sort of dynamic where, like, you have to decide how much of a Star-Lord gamer you're actually going to be, and a lot of that time, You do not need to be a huge one. What Cyclops does, though, is pretty useful for a deck like this. First of all, he can hit multiple things. That's good for your Abomination. And the hits all count toward Polaris. Like, Polaris and Abomination work differently. And that is important to understand because Polaris is going to key off of the total number of negative power, while Abomination is looking at the total number of cards afflicted. Those are two different things, and Polaris is much easier to trigger. And a lot of that is because you have, like, skip 2 turns with a Cyclops -4. Cool, great, love it. You're already basically there. Shang-Chi's a bit of an underrated card right now. I see a lot of people messing around with it in High Infinite, and the reason is pretty simple. If your opponent is doing a Star-Lord combo, Shang-Chi beats it. Just sort of end of conversation, it just does beat it, because you are able to, presumably with basically any deck, take priority against the deck whose turn 3 play is a Psylocke and whose turn 4 play is a Star-Lord. All you have to do is be ahead, you blow up the Star-Lord, they are probably snapping on the Star-Lord, they instantly lose the game. And now that Star-Lord is Shang-Chi-able, this is a thing that is dragging Shang-Chi back into the meta. He also has other utility, right? Like, there are a lot of combo decks that aren't necessarily packing Goliath. The reason I bring up Star-Lord is because normally Shang-Chi would just be good against the outcomes of that deck, but they're packing Goliaths and Juggernauts, so you actually have to time it in that matchup. But there are a lot of other decks that are doing, like, hello, I'm Phoenix forcing a Fin Fang Foom, and it's like, all right, man, I'm gonna Shang-Chi you, and you're gonna lose. And so, like, you end up in a space where this card is perfectly reasonable, if not actively excellent, against probably the dominant combo deck of the metagame, and is totally fine against a bunch of other stuff as well. It just has a lot of targets. Like, there are just a lot of people who are not afraid of a Shang-Chi right now, and, you know, if you're playing ramp, and you're just like, yeah, I'm playing 1 card a turn, that playstyle can only exist because people aren't playing this card. And if they are again, your days are numbered. So, you know, go out there, play some Shang-Chi, and start numbering those days. I originally had the thing in here for Laufey. That is probably wrong. Laufey is, you know, just more afflicts for the Polaris, basically, and a generally similar, if not larger size. But the thing is a perfectly acceptable budget replacement, thanks to High Evolutionary giving him the ability to afflict your opponent's cards with a 4/7 stat line. He is a perfectly acceptable guy. Laufey just ends up performing the same role of being pretty big and doing a lot of afflicts a little bit better, and that's a totally reasonable thing to swap out in and out. But if you don't have Laufey, this is a perfectly fine direction for you to go. I've already waxed poetic about Evo himself. This is just a great card for basically any new player. And I realize that I don't typically make content oriented to new players, and this isn't really that. I mean, I was ranked 24 in the world with this deck. It's totally good. But I do think that it's important that, like, I guess what I'm getting at is I don't understand why they went away from doing stuff like this. This is a card that I think is an absolute design and execution home run. And I realize it's probably, like, hard to make cards like that. But, like, when you think about cards like this or Arishem, I realize they're controversial, but, like, these are really exciting and game-changing cards. And I do think that Marvel Snap could use some investment in, whoa, that's crazy. So I'm kind of not sure how this is going to go, honestly, because I kind of set this video up to say, like, look, High Evo is totally viable, and then people are going to open the video and they're going to be like, "KM, you're playing Star-Lord. You're a piece of crap. You're an evil Star-Lord gamer." And I really don't know what to say. Like, do you want me to not play the card that synergizes with skipping turns in the deck that skips turns? Like, I guess I just don't know, like, what do you want from me? Like, there's a line, I think, right? And I think that is sort of where the line gets drawn, where it's like, this card is pretty good here. It's not like you're doing anything unethical with it. It's like, I don't know, big Psylocke. It's like a 5/9 +1, 5/10 +2, 5/11 +3. And you care kind of more about the body and, like, getting to some amount of energy that lets you play cards and skip on the final turn than you do about anything that a normal Star-Lord deck does. Like, you are not doubling this, you are not Arnim Zolaing this, you are not playing Goliath, you are not playing Juggernaut, you are not playing Fin Fang Foom, you're not doing any of that stuff. So I'm kind of just interested how this is going to get taken, right? Like, I worry that people are going to be like, you piece of crap, you can't, Star-Lord, I'm seeing red. And I just don't really think that's a fair way to go about it. Like, this is a high Evo deck. It would probably be a mistake to not do this. But honestly, he was so mediocre that, like, I don't know. My instinct was like, how can this possibly be bad? But it's like, I really wonder if you could just play other cards here. Like, I'm not wholly convinced a Luna Snow wouldn't be better. Like, I'm not saying it would, but I'm not totally out of thinking that, right? Like, he was fine. This was a very fair Star-Lord, which is a weird experience because basically all he does in the metagame context is unfair. But, like, you are playing him on turn 5. You are never over investing in him unless he's, like, in your hand, basically. Like, if I don't have a Star-Lord in my hand, I'm playing on curve most of the game. Like, I genuinely, it's just if I happen to draw him, that's when I'll build or I'll play my game around Star-Lord. But, like, if he's not there, I ain't doing it. Foolish rabble, you are beneath me. When evolved, Abomination's text changes to say that he gets -1 cost for each afflicted card on your opponent's side of the board. This means that he is usually in the range of like 2-9. That's really the break point that you want to hit for him for many of the same reasons we talked about with Polaris. Like, you want Abomination to be 2 because Star-Lord is mostly just getting you to 8. And so you can play Star-Lord into Hulk Abomination. Or if you're not Star-Lording, what you're doing is you're playing Shang-Chi Abomination at 2. That's typically the breakpoint you're looking for. Abomination at 2, way better than Abomination at 3. Weird, but it is something you should know. Hulk Smash, with the Evo Evolve in effect, Hulk becomes one of, if not the biggest 6-drops in the entire game. There is a distinct lack of large 6-drops in Marvel Snap. They just aren't really around anymore, and Hulk actually getting updated to 14 power before things like Magneto or Hulkling caught up, it kind of means that he's able to be a bigger guy than basically anything short of a Fin Fang Foom in the world that we live in. Now, he only will scale with your skipping energy when he's in hand, but generally the way I approach these games is I'll have like, you know, I'll go 1 into 1, or I'll play a 2-on-3. And like when these cards are in your hand, Hulk and Star-Lord, that's when you start really changing how your gameplay goes. But you shouldn't, and I know this is going to sound weird, you shouldn't be playing for these cards when they're not there a lot of the time, because it is such a downgrade to skip with no upside. If you're skipping for, Misty Knight, I don't know if that's worth it. You might just want to play the card on curve. Like, I was very happy running out Cyclops on 3 and then another 3 on the next turn, right? Like, that's fine because I'm getting the Cyclops proc, and that's sort of the break point there. But, like, if you're not getting at least the Cyclops proc, and, you know, Hulk in hand is kind of a Cyclops proc, but it's not realized in the same way and doesn't have the same synergy. If you're not getting a Star-Lord that you have in hand that you know is going to work, I kind of do feel like you want to play this deck a little more on curve than you'd think. Now, I realize I'm saying that a lot. You still play off curve to get the abilities, but you have to actually think about it. Like, you do have to seriously consider, what is the trade-off here? You know, if it's turn 4 and I don't have a Star-Lord in hand, but I do have a Hulk and I have a Cyclops on board, how many points am I losing for playing this Laufey? What are my other options? And I think thinking like that will help you get better at a deck like this. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to jump into some gameplay right now. I've been KMBest. You have been phenomenal, and I will see you in the next one. Okay, I mean, I'm drawing Abomination next, right?
Opponent snapped.
I'm so smart, dude. So what, it's like Zola? I mean, it's jug middle, and we got a 50-50 for it to go left anyway, right? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the shit right there. Paula, get the fuck out of here, dog. Ah! Ha ha! Snap on principle, he's on some dog shit. Well... Oh, fuck, it's the many men. Can I greet it? I'm gonna.
I am the Sorcerer Supreme.
Just the mere fact that there is a Sholau in here is enough to scare the living shit out of me. I'm assuming this is the old one cuber. Can show Kitty. How big is it? Maverick's at 1 power. How big is Sholau here? Plus 12? I think it's plus 15. Ha! We have plus 21 in each lane.
Victory.
How can it not be good? You've climbed ranks. So true, bestie. Climb equals. I agree. That's pure facts right there. RSM Gaming. All right, I guess I just.
Snap.
Moby off the RSM. I mean, it's we're afraid of. Okay, noted. I'm going for the 2 side lanes is basically the extent of my planning here. Yeah, I didn't think it was... Yep, we're good. Good. Oh, they should have ordered that differently. It would have pulled a Sentinel. But yeah, the Shadow King mid felt pretty clear. Playing out my hand. Instead of letting Polaris do it for me, yeah, what if... Besides the cards that are busted, like, are we sure that's how it's meant to be discussed? Why aren't you, What does he know? I fell for the skipping turn scam. I know. Boy, I mean... I feel pretty dead. Okay. He has prio, so...
Power must be controlled.
It's clobbering time.
Useful. Even more useful. Thing first, big bro. Yay, boy. Yeah, go ahead, play over here. Actually, play over here. I think most people tend to play on locations that are available to them, which I think incentivizes me to, you know, go a different route. Is High Evo cooking? No. No, bro. He ain't shit.
Taking aim. Taking aim.
Oh my god. Okay, they are playing Yondu. That probably makes my deck better. How often are you playing off curve with this deck to make Star-Lord worth it? Enough. Like, if I have him, I have the ability to. Thing. Double Lake Hellas makes their deck better? It really does. I'm not gonna get rocketed. This'll hit after this. I mean, I guess the real question is if I play this, right? If I play this Star-Lord, I've been off curve twice, so I get 2 energy. It's probably better to just do that. Fascinating. They played exactly where I didn't want them to play. What do you know? Probably dead. Based on, I think they're watching the stream. Really? I mean, I guess I'm just dying to like a show Lao or something. Or not.
Victory.
So this is a pretty awful hand. RSM Gamer snapping me. I'm gonna stay because I'm kind of stupid like that. Interesting. That is objectively very helpful. Holy shit. I mean, like, do we even really feel strongly about Red Guardianing that Sarah? I think we probably do. I think we feel reasonably strongly about it. But I think... Okay, yeah, now I regret it. Oh, that's fine. Do I have cards? Oh. Play. I think I lose the guy's not big enough here on the right. Oh no, I win.
Power must be controlled.
I'm the smartest player of all time. Damn, dude. It's pretty fucking sick nasty being me.
Victory.
Like, there's just a lot to contemplate there, you know? No, it's not time to do that tantrum. We don't need to be ridiculous here, you know? We don't need to get crazy style. Holy shit. Incredible. Well, I hope they don't have a Mobius. Ah, shit. I see. Does seem problematic. Crap. What's going on with balance now that Glenn left? Oh, assuming I'm dead. Great question. But Glenn, from what he's said, a lot of his stuff has been phased out. Okay, we died. Unless they get like a really bad thing in the middle. Holy shit. We did it. Oh, no. The person doing OTAs is Michael Majors, and